name's Kate Silverton, and I'm one of the old dinosaurs, I think, obviously as a traditional broadcaster. So I am delighted to be here. So let's pick up on two points first of all then. The technical aspect. Am I now on this one? Am I on here?
So the bandwidth one is really interesting. When I work with brands, and I work globally doing campaigns with them as an influencer a lot of time, but also production. And the very first thing I ask is you know, can we get good bandwidth there? And there are solutions, I'm sure there's probably some in this room that allow things like 4G bonding, so that you basically bond a load of signals from SIM cards, different SIM cards together to give you a strong strength of internet connection. But the really interesting thing is these mediums like Facebook Live and Twitter's Periscope, they're working really hard to actually create an app that doesn't need a lot of bandwidth. You can go live with Periscope with less than a megabyte. Now, it's not recommended, a megabyte per second, I should say. It's not recommended because you're going to get a little bit of a pixely feed. But for the most part, you'll be able to get the message out. And so in most locations, so even being in a room in here, I'm still able to go live. But there are solutions out there if you want to do a more high production, you know, the lady here talked about kind of taking the tech and doing maybe multi-camera streams and things like that. That's when you need to really have the high speed connection in. Even then, if I kind of reference the E-stream I did for the Oscars, that was a 3-camera setup. We had loads of vision mix kind of signals coming in. I think we were probably doing that on about a 5 megabit per second line, and it was still perfectly crystal clear. To kind of reference the point here, mobile versus tech setup, I always think it depends on the situation. And referencing that point of speed to air, if you're on the ground and something happens, it takes 2 seconds to get the mobile out, launch the Facebook app and go live. If you want to do a slick sort of production, then that option is there as well. You don't have to take it. You can still, I know some people that do these productions, but they do it all on mobile natively through the Facebook app. But I think the fact that the option is there, that if you want to, you can actually put on a studio quality production and have it live streamed is really good.
So Medea, tell us a little bit about OSN. You're responsible for strategy planning and management as well as market and consumer intelligence. Tell us a bit more about your value proposition and your demographic, most crucially.
Yes, I'm definitely representing the traditional side of the broadcasting industry right now, but because in the MENA region we do have 60% of the population which is under 35 years old, the challenges that typical broadcasters and pay TV operators are facing everywhere in the world, I think are much more severe in our region. So we really need to keep up. First of all, we're not as penetrated as other companies as ours in other countries, but not only the market is going very fast, our audience is leapfrogging from a technology to the other, from a consumer behavior to the other, and it's a never-ending story, basically. It's a very, very young audience. What I do, it's keeping up with what's going on in the market and elsewhere, and because it's a global audience, whatever happens anywhere in the world can actually affect our business model. Our business model is the typical one. We do have DTH packages that we sell to families around the Middle East and North Africa. We do distribute throughout IPTV partners, telcos. We do have OTT products and all sorts of packaging there as well for different segments. So we kind of have a huge portfolio of products that we try to keep up with all what's happening on the other side of the spectrum.
Can I just check that everyone is hearing Medea very well? Is it all good? So how do you stay, not just one step, but 10 steps ahead? Because I am tempted to ask, is this a young person's game? Do you have to flip, even when you're targeting those people, your workforce? Are you aware of a disparity, or am I just being provocative and ageist?
Not at all. What we do, we hire a lot of very young people in every single team, not only in social media or marketing, but also in the strategy and finance and content team. Actually, that's not the challenging part, because we do have a lot of talent which is up to speed inside the company. What's really difficult is dealing with the industry, meaning that from a supplier standpoint, on content and on technology, on both sides, what we struggle is the time frame that have been there forever, the windowing that we need to deal with in terms of content, the right buying structure that we cannot really get more flexible than what they are right now. So to keep up the business model we do have, and we're evolving towards where the consumer is going, we also need to kind of bring everybody up to speed, the technology providers, content providers, everybody. Otherwise, it's a two-speed type of business that we need to run, and it's very difficult.
I mean, the appetite to both of you is voracious in terms of what people are asking for. I mean, are you finding that? Are you just saying it's driving your content live on air?
Yeah, I mean, it's ruthless sometimes. My audience is obviously slightly different, but even when I end a live stream, I've had times where I've been off of the app for a day and I'll get tweets being like, are you okay? Like, where are you? You're meant to be online like right now. Or if I'm 5 minutes late to a scheduled broadcast, it's like, what happened? Is it been cancelled? And so from that aspect, there seems to be a lot of demand. I think it's interesting you say about a young person's game. I polled my audience yesterday on Twitter and I said, what do you watch more of? Is it social and online content or is it TV? And 73% said social and online content. And I think that's the kind of, we're getting to the worrying times where it's like, well, are people just switching off from TV right now? And if so, how do we combat that?
So how do we combat that? Because you're 25.
Yeah.
So we can kind of get your sense of demographic. How do we combat that? And when you go into the BBC, Sky, anyone that you're advising, are you in your head thinking, you're all dead in the water in not too long a period if you don't keep up?
Well, I wouldn't say I say that to them. I might be thinking it sometimes. I think you introduce yourself as a dinosaur. I've definitely used that term before. But no, there's definitely some frustrations, especially when you're speaking to the guys at the top who have been so used to the way that the industry works for so long, where you have to change. Like, you have to say, you guys have got to change, otherwise you kind of will be dead in the water at some point, because it's no lie, millennials and below are switching off from TV. It's just not the offering that they turn to anymore. They find so much more trust in the likes of YouTube and their idols that they find on those sorts of platforms, that they're choosing to spend more time watching them than traditional TV, which is why I think it's interesting that networks like the BBC have noticed and listened to that, and you'll see more and more YouTubers popping up on traditional TV. So I kind of referenced in my talk Joe and Casper, two huge YouTubers who did a BBC kind of series where they traveled the world. It sold out pre-sales, and how you quite sell out pre-sales for a DVD on Amazon, I don't know, because it's pre-sales, but somehow it did. Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway, they had YouTubers on there for the whole series. They do things on YouTube. So I think what's interesting is where networks are kind of realizing, okay, we have to do online stuff. How can we combine, what we do natively traditional TV with what's going on with online at the moment?
And there is also, and I want to pick up on this with you, Medea, but just coming back to one of your points, Westminster last week, for example, I think we do have to be careful, and this is where I will speak with a journalist hat on. Verification, authenticity, and the trust that people will have in people on the ground, we can't necessarily verify. So I come from a standpoint of thinking it is brilliant, but there are certain serious concerns around how we verify, and obviously that's where you get the major broadcasters doing that. So I think there's a balance there that I think we have to acknowledge.
Absolutely. If you're going to take a user-generated piece of content from Facebook Live and consider putting it on air on the BBC, you have to do a ton of verification and things like that before you can even think about putting it on air. And I 100% agree with that. Fake news is a big topic right now, and we definitely don't need more of that. But I think what's interesting and where the power is the fact that that person who is live on the ground at that event can live stream, and it is raw, it is authentic. You do sometimes see stuff that you wouldn't see.
Well, that's
and that's a whole issue in itself.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't find BBC doing that live stream. These are people who are on the ground just everyday citizens turning into kind of everyday citizen journalists. And then it's up to the BBC or whoever it may be, any network, to choose what clips they take and then try and verify.
And as you said, that's probably a debate for another time. But it's an important point to raise. But let's come back. Monetization and marketing. Crucial for both of you, and this announcement, this just very recent announcement. Let's just clarify for that, for those people who've just joined, and ask you about your policy, because you describe yourself at OSN as truly platform agnostic, and that's, you know, talking about the integration of several methods of payment. So I wondered why, because it's a customer journey as well that you're talking about there.
Yeah, first of all, the challenge we have is that we are distributing our product in 24 countries, and each of the country we're serving has different method of payments, different user behavior, in some cases different traditional and cultural and religious barriers to adopt some method of payment. So method of payments is a big challenge. If we wanted to be totally up to speed, we could probably integrate more than 40 methods of payments at the same time.
Wow.
That's really a challenge. But also content discovery is becoming a big one, because again, subscribers around the world of OTT services or traditional pay TV services, at the end of the day, they have a huge plethora of different content they can consume, and content discovery becomes a paramount functionality for them to kind of, and again, it's not the editorial choices that eventually were true a little bit before, but it's based on their behavior. They want to, in 2 clicks, kind of find the content they like. So there is this immediate satisfaction thing that providers of this kind of services like ours need to deal with. And there was a very interesting article on The Economist a few weeks ago that was actually saying that the evolution or revolution we are experiencing right now is actually serving those big, huge brands like Disney or HBO. Again, who hasn't seen Game of Thrones? So who's not waiting for it around the world, I guess, in July 16. So at the end of the day, all this democratization of content has actually given the usual big brands a big boost, just because when content discovery becomes more critical, the user tends to go to the usual suspects, the typical brands where they always use, and it was a very interesting perspective. Yeah. So it's a challenging world. Where do we put our money, and how do we monetize those investments? It's really a big challenge for all of us, I guess.
So what do you make of Alex's model?
It's a different one.
That's an exciting set of models, because again, we have Alex here, we do have a few others around, even in the region we operate around the world. The beauty of this kind of talent emerging so quickly and creating audiences out there gives us an opportunity to embrace different point of view and to experiment without really a lot of cost or without having to deal with internal barriers. So when I witness this kind of stories and this kind of success stories, I get pretty excited, because we can do so much now with broadcasting and with the OTT and with delivering content to users out there. It's really exciting. It's exciting time.
And Alex, for you as an individual company, if we can put you like that, it's time intensive, as you've said. Is it now financially rewarding, sufficiently rewarding for you to think this is a viable option for more people like me?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning there was that kind of worry and question. I left my job at Dentsu Aegis. I used to work for them as part of John Brown as their head of live or something like head of live or whatever it was, the title that they gave me. And I kind of just decided one day, I was like, well, can I jump into this and make money with it? And I decided to do it. It was hard at first, but now definitely these different revenue streams have opened up. I don't know if everyone was here before, but we were talking about Today, Twitter just announced that you can now apply pre-roll advertising to their periscopes. So for advertisers, that's great because you can get exposure with not just Twitter videos now, but with live videos on Twitter through Periscope. And for broadcasters like me, it's another revenue stream. I can turn on ads on my Periscope and start getting, I believe, the broadcaster gets 70% and Twitter keeps 30. I think that's the deal. So it's another revenue stream for me. In terms of other revenue streams that I have through my Periscope channel, sponsored content is a big thing. I run my own pre-roll ads and mid-roll ads for my personal sponsors. And I obviously charge for that. I also do product demos, which are charged for. So yes, it's viable. It's definitely hard work in the beginning. I also have a production arm, so that's where a lot of the money does come in. So when brands and broadcasters come to me and say, we want to do this event and we want it to go live on Periscope or Facebook, I have a whole production arm that will come in and do the production for them. And again, that's been another revenue stream. So it's tough for the lone wolf, but it's definitely been rewarding, great fun, and now monetary viable.
And we've heard you demonstrate quite clearly how you can shift and shape with immediate feedback. How do you best measure shifts in consumer behavior?
We do a lot of measurements. Some of those are based on similar platforms, so we do monitor whatever happens on every single social media, and we do have our own research, and we do also buy research out there. The big investment we are all doing in the industry is going to the so-called big data solutions, and now actually it's not even big data anymore, it's data lakes, for who out there understand exactly the details of it. I would really like to talk to you. But anyway, there are a lot of data out there, and we monitor all of those. Now, making sense of the data, it's probably the trickiest part. We do receive a lot of insights from everywhere, but when it comes to decision on which piece of content, on which platform, at which time, what's the target audience, how do we engage with them outside the typical screen, that's where the creative side of the company needs to come in, and the monitoring and the data insights are kind of a little bit of a secondary source of thoughts, I guess.
And what about disruption? You mentioned proliferation of OTT platforms and SVOD services, online piracy as well. Do they provide a risk or an opportunity?
It's basically both. Definitely an opportunity when it comes to new products, new services, when we want to reach new segments. Those kind of platforms and technology gives us a lot of flexibility and opportunities to engage with our audiences. Piracy, it's a big deal. In particular, when the big content providers are kind of yet struggling themselves with that. So in particular in the Middle East, where 50% of the population is on VPNs, and the content industry is still slicing and dicing the world in regions. We have 50% of our potential target audience, which is actually paying Netflix from the US, and Netflix not anymore because they launched officially in the region, so now they closed the VPN access finally. But it's a global fight. So competitors are coming from all over the place. It's not anymore OSN against Bein or the local OTT players. We need to look at what happens everywhere in China, in South Korea, in South America, in North America, in Europe, everywhere in Africa, and monitor what's going on at a consumer level. So it's a much more complex world, but that's why we don't get bored, I guess. And
we have a few minutes, and I'd love to come and ask people in the audience some questions to put to our panel. So can you raise a hand if you have got a question? Lovely. Okay. Let me just come down. What's a daisy do? Technology at its finest. Here we go. Right. Actually, can I ask you to introduce yourselves as well, just where you're from?
Colin Dixon with In-Screen Media. I'm an analyst in digital media. You said something, I heard both of you say something very interesting on the panel. You said that television has to combat the erosion of the audience. I think that's a mistake. I think television has to embrace and extend and recognize that this is a new medium that's been existing for very little time.
Yeah.
So, you know, to discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. Maybe combat was the wrong type of word, but it's embrace is really the best word. I think the point or the way that sometimes we feel is that those people at the top are just ignoring it and hoping that it will go away. But the fact is it won't go away. So you can either, like you say, embrace it or like feel a bit of a loss, really, because at some point the crunch time is going to come where you have to adapt and you have to embrace it. So yeah, maybe combat it was the wrong word, but embrace is definitely a better way of saying it.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I think the DG of the BBC has got it right. With, for example, making the statement that iPlayer has to become a destination, not an augmentation of the television experience. It becomes an entertainment experience that's something that's going to evolve dramatically. Live online is very different to live on television. There's a greater sense of community in the live medium online particularly, but the successful services online are the ones that generate strong, vibrant communities, contribute to it and feed off of it. So, you know, services like Crunchyroll, Comic-Con, HQ, they're being successful because they feed off those communities.
Yeah. The only reason that I've been able to do what I do is because I've been able, like you say, to create a community and an extremely loyal community. When I flew out to New York for that event, I actually tweeted that I was flying out to New York, and I had one of my followers at the airport there to pick me up without me even knowing. It's like, it's really weird, but this sense of community, and I think live streaming allows you to create an even bigger sense of community, because the fact that they do see you live every day and they see the real uncut version of you, not this kind of YouTube that has the redo button and has the glossy filters and the whatever else is thrown all over it, but you know, it is a very live, authentic, uncut version, and so they get to know you as a person. And I've always kind of felt like people will subscribe or they'll follow me for my content, but they'll fall in love with me because of my personality. And I think that, and then like that is predominantly how I built my following and my community, and I respect them massively for it. And I think that's where the power is. And a lot of brands and broadcasters don't realize that yet, that it is the sense of community that they need to strive for, rather than just using their platforms as a broadcasting tool to give information.
Totally.
Lovely. Anybody else like to ask a question? Oh, come on, you're all here listening. You must have a question now. Otherwise I might come and pick on somebody. How are we doing for time now? I mean, I've got a few. We're okay? Yeah. Well, I think we're going to say thank you very much indeed to Alex and Medea. Thank you so much for your time and for giving us your insight and assessments from today. It has been really, really interesting. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.